here we are with my good friend JJ Englert, who's been a long time no code advocate, Bubble developer, software developer, and now an expert in AI agents. And respect to you for adapting so quickly to the changing times, way faster than me. But yeah, thank you for joining us on this episode of Decoded, where we sit down with AI and no code experts and just learn from them and chat about how things are changing. And really excited to learn more about AI agents. Obviously it's a hot topic at the moment. I don't think that's going to go away because of the sheer potential of what the promise is that they can be able to do, and maybe some of that promise is already being realized. My own experiments with agents have found that they can be quite unreliable, in the same way that using an AI to generate, email content can be a bit unreliable sometimes. But yeah, I'd love to hear more about your experiences with them. But yeah, if you want to just start with a quick intro of like how you got into this in the first place, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm JJ. I am the lead community and education at Softer. I've been with them for the last year. Before then, I started building with NoCode, and I don't even know, like 2019 at this point. Was a big time Bubble user, built a lot with Bubble, built a couple businesses with Bubble that I sold, and I have a lot of courses on NoCodeAlliance.org. It's my resource for those that want to learn professional skills, get certifications, and get jobs in this industry. Part of my effort to help this industry modernize the no-code and AI industry, as it's so new and there's not a lot of guardrails, there's not a lot of best practices, there's not a lot of information about how you should hire people, how you should pay people, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of my resource is NoCodeAlliance.org. And I also run the podcast This Week in No Code plus AI. And that has given me a really good vantage point into this industry, because it forces me every week to learn the latest, right? And I don't know if I would be doing that if I didn't have the podcast, because I'm a busy guy. I do a lot of things. And so keeping up with everything that's going on right now is really hard. There's a lot going on right now. And I would say we're at the tip of the iceberg. So Kieran, you say that you're late to the game. You're still a very early adopter. You know what I mean? Like, we're so early in this. But I think the really exciting part for me is the traction that it's getting, right? So again, I've been building with Bubble for many, many years, and I built many, many videos, resources, etc. And as part of that, I do research on the market. I just look at search trends. I look at interest. I look at where things are going. And it was probably 3 months ago, 4 months ago, I was doing some research, and it was just so clear to me the insane growth rate seen with AI agents and other AI platforms compared to the other things that I might have been talking or educating about. And when you're an educator, and so busy, you only have so much time in the day. And it's like, where am I going to invest this time? And I want to invest time on resources that are going to be seen by people, that are going to be helpful for people, and that, have that trajectory to make a big impact. And that's why I was like, you know what? I don't know anything about AI agents yet, but I'm going to really do what I can to learn about this. And better yet, I'm going to give myself a challenge. And I'm going to say in the next 3 to 4 months, I'm going to have a course where I teach it as well. Because courses have always been that thing where it forces you to learn that subject at a deep level, right? It puts you on stage and really tests your knowledge of, okay, you've been studying, now go and teach it, right? And so yeah, it was about 3 to 4 months. I acknowledged the search trend, the interest, and I just started trying out as many tools as possible, trying to build as many things as possible. And I ended up launching my course for AI agents a couple of weeks ago. And so it's been a good 3 to 4 months of just building a lot of different things and a lot of different platforms, experimenting just like you, Kieran.
Yeah, congratulations on launching the course. And yeah, having recorded courses myself, I know, I totally agree. It is a great way of forcing yourself to learn. And that's exactly what I did. When I was fairly new to no code and to Bubble, I decided to make a course, and that forced me to learn a load of stuff that I would have otherwise put off learning.
Yeah.
And then I made a second course, and then I forced myself to do stuff like learn APIs and things which I hadn't really touched on before, but I was like, I got to learn them so I can teach them. And if you're going to teach it, you've got to have a really good understanding of it in the first place. So that, yeah, super smart move. And I know the amount of hard work that goes into making a course. So well done on shipping it like absolutely on time.
Yeah.
And learning something that's like still really new. So there's not even that many resources out there to learn it yourself. You kind of making it up.
Yeah, that was honestly the hard part. I've done a lot of courses now, but usually like I'm an expert in that. Like, so I don't have to go and learn it and then also film it, right? And like that, this course was exceptionally hard because as I was filming it, new things were coming out, new capabilities were coming out, new tools were coming out, and I was still learning it, right? And like I know how to build systematic tools at a high level because I've been building these for so many years. And that's really what a lot of these AI agents are. There's just different terminology and different things, and just learning how to debug in different platforms and learning how to think about how to build in different platforms. That's all like a first time thing. And so a lot of it was I would build everything ahead of time in my course, right? Because I'll build it, I'd make sure the whole complete thing makes sense, and then I would reteach it in the course. And so it wasn't just filming that course, it was building everything that I need to build, debugging everything that I ran into along the way, learning the best practices about building that, and then it's like, okay, now this is ready to like really share and educate people on. And so it was, for like 2 months where it was like nights and weekends, most nights kind of thing. And it really pushed me in that way. It got a little unhealthy for like a little small stretch, but now we're back out and we're good.
Yeah. Now you've launched it. You just had
Yeah.
the hard part, which is the marketing. But no, I think you're doing a good job of that. I've seen your video
Thank you.
promotions, which are like super creative. What do you think it is about AI agents that has captured the imagination of the masses more than no code and things like that, which we know no code is amazing once you get into it, but what is it about agents that's so different?
Yeah, I think there's many things at play here. I think timing is a really big thing. And I think a lot of what you could do with agents has been able to be done with no code automations, AI automations for a long time, like 90% of it. The big thing with AI agents is that all of a sudden you can operate in much more of a fuzzy area that you couldn't have done before. But otherwise, the nodes, the steps, the actions, they're all the same that we've been building with for many years. But now you have this agent persona that can actually read, understand, think based on the infrastructure you build for it, and then take actions with the tools that you give it. And that really opens up a lot of doors. And it's quite exciting. And at the same time, the interest for AI has never been so high, right? And so the ability for these AI agents to think independently like this and to take actions, and that it's accessible within a no-code platform, many no-code platforms now, a visual development platform. Much of that, like n8n, is really stolen the show here. And I think really because of how visual everything is, that it's a really visual canvas. And when you put it on social media, you see like these agents and these nodes like thinking and working for you. And it really helps to bring this hard concept or difficult concept or abstract concept for many to life because they can visually see it now, right? Like LangChain has been around for a long time, and you've been able to build agents for a long time, but with code and everything. And like that's hard to visualize. That's hard to think of like, how can I really use this? But when you see it in that visual canvas and the ability to use n8n to go in there and drag a couple of nodes together with that AI agent nodes, and also you have an AI agent, the accessibility has never been greater, matched with the interest for AI has never been higher. Those two convening has made a really special point for AI agents. And now I think no code, because no code is going to follow right up on that.
Would you be cool to share your screen and show us a bit of this kind of interface for people that haven't seen n8n, just to help them understand what we're talking about? So I've seen loads of. I've not really used n8n. I'd heard about it years ago. I remember there was a guy that was in my community who was a
Yeah.
big n8n expert, and he was always saying, "Guys, I can do a workshop on n8n." No one was really interested. We were just like, "Okay, it's like Zapier, but it's like cheaper because you can self-host it."
And more
But everyone was
complicated.
like, "Yeah, but more complicated." And everyone was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, we've got Zapier, we've got Integromat at the time, now
Yeah.
Make.com. Why do we really need something else? And then recently it's totally blown up, and
More than the
yeah,
other tools too.
yeah. Let me just put your screen on stage.
Yeah.
There we are.
So Kieran, I'm very aligned with that. I think 2 years ago, I was working full time as a Bubble developer, and we needed to build this really complex workflow. And the CEO was like, "Can we build it in n8n?" And like I didn't know much about it at the time, and I was just like, I don't know. Like, and I was just leaving the company at that time, and they went off and built it in n8n without me, and they had success. But I had always had this thought of it of just like kind of looks a little outdated. You need to know how to use code a little bit more than these other platforms, and just I didn't have the need to get there, right? But I will tell you that I've been fascinated with this tool. The deeper I go in it, the more I find in it in a good way, right? And that it really reminds me of Bubble in that way, where when you're building with Bubble and you're learning Bubble, there's layers and layers, and the deeper you go, the more you normally like until you get to a certain point. But the more you normally like, and that's what I found with n8n, and like even my love for n8n while teaching the course has grown significantly because of how much I've built in the course and have learned along the way. And yeah, so without any further ado, here is the canvas. It's a very visual canvas, and you can just immediately drag everything around. You can even right click to have the canvas kind of organize itself for you. And right here, this is my trigger, and it's notified by this trigger icon. Now, for any of those that are new to automation, triggers are essentially the thing that starts this workflow, that starts this action. And in my situation, I say when a chat message is received. And the cool thing about this trigger is that you can open up the chat right here and initiate that trigger right here by chatting with it, right? So it's your own chat bot in that way. But you can also open up this trigger and connect it to a public API or a webhook event and also expose it that way. So when you're building with this chat as a chatbot in this way, it's really cool because it's very convenient, and you can run it in real time and get the answers. Now, what I'm seeing right here is I have this chat, and then I have this agent node, and I call it my personal agent. And this is an agent that I build in my course with in a very lessonized way. Like in each lesson, we build one of these tools. And so we have this agent node, and first we start by giving the agent a brain. All right. And so in this case, the brain is an LLM module, and you can give it any kind of brain you want. In this case, I've been using a lot of 4.0. I think 4.0 works really well. But you could use a Claude 3.7, you could use a Gemini 2.0 Flash, etc. And so you give it a brain, and then you give it memory. And this is a really easy node where you could just essentially, if you wanted to add another node here, you can go in and add something like a memory, and you can see it right here along with others. And what the memory does is it allows you to set a point of how many chats do I want it to remember. So for example, they say, "Hey, Kieran, how are you doing?" And then you say, "Good." And then I say something to follow up with my first message. The chatbot needs to have the context of who I'm speaking with. And in that case, if I say the context window is 10, it will remember the last 10 messages I sent you with that perfect context window to keep it up without having to ever have to like fetch the database of conversations to read from what we just said. It just remembers it with this module. So you can make this pretty big too, but normally 10 is good enough for me. And so with the trigger, the brain, and the memory, we're now letting it, or now ready to give it tools to operate. And what I mean by tools is we want this agent to do a lot of things. I'm asking this agent to go off, be able to fetch my emails. And then when you fetch my emails, summarize the emails, read them for me, or even just look into them for me and say, "Hey, did Kieran message me sometime last week?" And then it will read my emails and then respond. "Oh yeah, Kieran messaged you here. Do you want to respond to him?" And then I could say, "Yeah, let's respond to him." So it would use this tool to fetch my emails, and then automatically detect, all right, now I need to send an email. Now I'm going to draft an email and use this tool to send that email. And so the agent, with very little instructions, is able to figure out which tools to use. And here I am in the agent module, and I essentially give a very simple, you are a personal assistant. Use the tools needed to answer the replies as best as possible. And then the available tools that I have for it. And then I go and list what each of the tools do. Now, when building my prompts, I like to keep it as simple as possible, as small as possible, because when it comes to debugging, if you have a really big prompt, you don't know where to start. If something is going wrong, you don't know what to pull back on. So I try to do less is more. I start very simple, one at a time, test it. If it's good quality, good. If not, I revert and test it. Like, one sentence, one piece of data info at a time in that way. And that helps me build prompts that are sustainable and, I'm able to, work with better at a larger scale. All right, so I have this personal agent and I am able to give it any kind of tools that I want. Now, a cool thing is you can just go into here and give it tools, and there are a ton of different tools that you can use. Very similar to Zapier and Make. You have a ton of tools available to you, and you can just connect right into these. You can auth into them, and that's great. But what I'm doing here is I've actually created different reusable elements in bubble terms for each of these tools. So each of these tools is a workflow. And I have chosen to create workflows for each of these tools. And then I call that workflow from here as the tool. So I'll show you, I'll get into a new tab here and I'll just show you what that get emails tool looks like. I'll go into here, I'll say get emails. And now this is the specific tool that I have built for this node here, right? And so by doing it this way, it's given me the ability to build in a modular way. And what's really cool is I now have this tool to get all my emails that I could plug into any workflow that I need, right? So you build it once in a modular way, and then I could plug it into this agent or another agent. It's just a tool now, and it's being, I can use it as I need to. And so for this tool, it's essentially saying that when it's called by another workflow, hit OpenAI, and what we're asking OpenAI to do is essentially figure out the date range that you need, of like, because you're getting a chat message of like, hey, check my emails from Kieran last week. So we're saying, hey, OpenAI, figure out that date range for that we're asking, and then return it. And then from there, go to the Gmail node, get a list of many emails within a certain received after date, which is what we got from the previous step. And then we're going to then take it, feed all of that to OpenAI to summarize it. And then we're going to bring all that together in an aggregate step. And then here's another cool thing. If it succeeds, I'm going to pass it back to the agent, right, via this step right here. And if it fails, I'm also going to pass it back to the agent, letting the agent know that there was an error. So that's communication back to the agent. So when I'm this agent here, this agent calls this tool. It's just waiting for a response. And by using this mechanism, you're communicating back to the agent that response, whether it's successful or not. If you don't do this kind of response on the way back, this agent is just kind of waiting of just like, hey, I told that tool to do something, but it's not coming back to me. And it could kind of get stuck in limbo. Yeah. But by communicating better here, like anybody, like we just need to be good communicators. By enabling these workflows to communicate back and forth with each other, they're able to stay updated faster and to understand what's going on. And so here's a very simple way. I just go into my settings and I say on error, continue using the error output. And that then gives any of these nodes the ability to have a success in an error output. And then from there, I'm able to just go in and go into my data transformation, edit fields, and I'm able to set some data in this field. Very similar to like a custom state in that way, where you kind of save data temporarily. You can use this node to just go in there and just pass some kind of data in some temporary way. Like we're not saving it to the database or anything like that. We just have a value that we want to save or just pass or whatever and move it on. And so in this case, yeah, the value is there was an error, and then I feed it the error that I got from that flow. So it now knows what to do. And then otherwise, I just feed it the actual response that it gets from that. And then it goes back and continues to work. And so this is a very simple flow, but it gives me the ability to update it in the future without ever having to like really complicate this flow, right? Like this is a very simple thing. If I needed to build a workflow for each of these tools, this canvas would get really big. And then also
Yeah.
it wouldn't make it modular to the point where I could reuse that in another workflow and other tools. And I have many workflows now, and building workflows, since my tools are at the system level, building these workflows are so simple because it's like, oh, I need my email tool, I need my calendar tool, I need a research tool, and I just link to the tools I already have created, and now all of a sudden I'm up and running with a lot of features that I built because I built in a modular way.
Yeah, that's very cool. And having tried to build agents with like make.com, unless I'm mistaken, there's some things that are quite difficult to do in Make. Like doing this modular approach, you can get your automations to trigger other automations with like webhooks and stuff, but it's not as nice as this. Like you can't visually look at it as nicely as this. You just have a massive list of all your automations. And the other thing that I couldn't figure out a way to do is this idea of having an assistant where it can go off and do a task and then get a response and then go off and do something else and do all that. In Make, you have to it's all quite linear, and then you have to kind of link it back into itself, and you can't have this like looping kind of effect, which makes perfect sense when you have agents, which ultimately is just an AI where you've given it the power to like decide, which you could do in Bubble as well. You could like go off and ask ChatGPT which of these things, and then it responds in a structured way and makes a decision about the next workflow it needs to run, and then you do
But
some
I think that's a little
conditionals.
bit too structured for an agent. Like if you were doing that in Bubble, it'd really just be an LLM call, and then you'd proceed with structure. I think the difference with agent is it's an LLM call, but then they have a bunch of tools and paths, and they pick that. You don't predefine that. I mean, you
Yeah.
tell it in a prompt, but like you're not saying if the response of this LLM is here, go here. If not, go here. And then what happens if the response falls out of those two? It fails. Like that's what would happen in Bubble. With here, this agent would read that and then actually figure out the best possible thing and then operate in that fuzzy area much better than we would have before. And that's why I think we're seeing a lot of success with two use cases with AI agents: chatbots and reading emails. And reading emails, because there's so much fuzzy area. You read an email and everything is different. Try building an email automation tool that is linear and condition based on reading emails. It's just like you can't really do it. But now with AI agents, they read it, they understand the context, and then they're able to route accordingly. And so like one of the other agents that I built, and I actually have a free video on this, maybe I'll link it in the time code here, is a podcast producer agent. Where are you, podcast producer? Are you in my personal? Podcast producer. And this agent is a little bit bigger, but essentially what it does is I've assigned it an email address, and that email address is my podcast email. This week in NoCode at n8n@gmail.com, whatever. So it reads every email that comes in, and then it classifies those emails. And I've told it to classify it in a couple of different ways. And so please evaluate the following email to determine if it suggests scheduling a podcast recording, or if scheduling is required, or if not scheduling required, and just a simple email reply. So essentially I'm saying, evaluate this email. Are they emailing me to see if they want to be an advertiser on the podcast? Do they want to be a guest on the podcast? Or are they just a spam or something else? And like, there's another folder, right? So based on that, evaluate that. And then I'm going to use the evaluation there to say, okay, if it's an appointment and I need to book this guest in this podcast, I'm going to follow this trajectory. Everything else is just going to follow here. And yeah, this is an LLM making that classification, and it is predefined routes there. So this isn't agentic behavior yet, but it's just saying, okay, based on this email, classify. Then we have two different flows: the booking or just respond to normal emails. And if we go into the respond to normal email section, I am now using an agent, and I have again connected it to a brain, a memory. I have given it a tool, which is Perplexity, to research, because a lot of the messages I get it's like, hey, can I be a guest on your podcast? And so In that case, it would follow this normal route. It would, I have it in my prompt here of essentially, this is a much longer one. Maybe this was maybe done before I had taken my own advice. But essentially what I'm saying is, if they want to be a guest, go and research this person, right? Research this person, see if they would be a good guest. And if so, use the Slack tool to send me a message saying that, hey, Kieran just emailed me. He wants to be a guest in this podcast. Here's the research I've done about him. And then here, click on the Google Doc to view the research in more detail kind of thing. And then it says, do you want me to accept him? Yeah, yes or no. And in the Slack message, if I say yes, then it will email you back and say, hey, you've been accepted. Now let's schedule a time to book you on the podcast. And then it would go through the scheduling flow, right? So we have a human in the loop interface here where it's figuring out, all right, I'm routing this information. It's reading what kind of info it needs. Like if they don't want to be a guest on the podcast, it won't use this tool. Maybe it will just then say, respond to it like a normal person, like, hey, thanks for your message. Try again, whatever. But if they want to be a guest on the podcast, then it will go and research it. Another thing that it will do is once this is actually confirmed, it will then go off and do podcast research and prep for that episode with that guest and save it as a Google Doc in my drive. So that way, once I have confirmed this person as a guest, it will go off and do the research on this guest of using Perplexity, mainly Perplexity at this point, but I could easily go in here, call another workflow and use my general research flow tool right there. And then all of a sudden use my, to expand upon that, because I've already built a different tool that is better in research than just the Perplexity. So I could easily go in that and also use this tool and maybe use both of these or just one of these. But right now it uses Perplexity and it's using it to, figure out if it's a good guest on the podcast. And if not, if it's doing research for the upcoming podcast episode. And then also I'm giving it access to send emails, mark emails as read as well. And so there's a lot that goes into this. And there's two different agents at work here. And that's another thing I want to share is agents are really good with a small context. Like I am good at, think of employees. You have an employee that runs sales and you have an employee that runs operations. An agent likes to be in charge of like one area, sales. And then you have another agent for operation. If you wanted to have the same agent doing sales and operations, it could work, but the quality is normally not going to be as good because the prompt and all the specifics you need to get into it with that person are going to be shared with all this stuff with the other stuff. And there could be some confusion and overlap and conflict, and it's hard. So in this situation, I have given an agent to handle just a normal email and research. Matter of fact, you could even say that this should be just normal emails and then another agent for the research, really processing that well and maybe looping through that research in a quality assurance way to make sure that the research that I did is good enough to pass back on to this agent to then send. Right now, there's no way to do that, but like I could easily add that flow into this workflow if I wanted to expand it in that way, if that makes sense. And so then that way I have an agent for emails, and then I also have an agent for getting calendar availability as well. And so breaking it down into very specific, just like we did in the modular way, building those module components, using agents in a very specific way as well, is a way to get better results from those agents. Because as you were saying in the beginning, sometimes the results aren't good, and that's true. There's a lot of fuzzy area. But if you get very specific with your agents, you can increase the quality of the success. I don't think the quality is like there yet it's not going to replace employees yet. However, for something like handling an email address that gets 10 emails a month kind of thing, I'm willing to trust it with that. You know what I mean? I'm not willing to trust it with my personal software email that gets tons of emails every single day yet, right? Mm-hmm. But with AI being the main tool that this workflow is using and it getting smarter every single day, this workflow is getting smarter every single day without me having to build anything new because of the advancements of models and everything that we're seeing there. And so, yeah, this isn't 100% yet, but this framework, the way to build all this kind of stuff, that's still true. And as AIs advance, it's going to get really close. 6 months, a year, 2 years, like we got to be there. Right. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, we're not there yet. We're still early days. And it's so funny because it really reminds me so much of like with all the AI builders now and everything, early day no code. Early day no code, everyone was like, 2018, 2019, wow, I just built this. Non-technical people having that moment for the first time. Wow, I just built this. I didn't think I could build this. And now I just built this. And then everyone's saying, yeah, but like, is it on production? Do you got users? Do you have revenue? Like everyone saying that, it's like, great, you built that, but like, does it actually work in a scalable way? Now with AI builders, everyone's kind of having that same moment again of, wow, I just built this. And then even no code is saying, yeah, but does it work in a scalable production
Yeah.
kind of way? Right. Like it's very similar to that loop. And I think we're kind of in that beginning of the loop here of, wow, I just built this. And then we're saying, but does it work in a production scalable, business focused way? And it's like, maybe it's on the edge of it right now. But as no code in the last 4 years, it's, yeah, you can use it in a business scalable, awesome way in many different ways. And like, that's where this is going to be in the coming years. And so it's just a great time to get involved with it. And n8n is the most powerful, sophisticated platform that I've seen in a no code way, very similar to
Mhm.
Bubble. When you're thinking AI agents, n8n is Bubble. And then you're thinking, uh, like softer, very, very simple. The easiest no code platform is like Zapier to AI agents, right? Like those are really like how I think of it. And so you don't always need to go into n8n. It's just sometimes overkill. I also really like Lindy.ai. They're more of a business focused B2B approach, but what they're able to do, and I have my Lindy AI open right now, what they're able to do, let me see, here we go, in a very simple way, like this all of a sudden, look how much more simple this looks, right?
Yeah.
And again, we have two different triggers here of, hey, this meeting has started. And then once this meeting starts, we have a little condition. And now for this condition, it says, go down this path if the event contains a meeting link. So it's a very plain text condition. And that's one of the things I love about Lindy is normally in workflow builders, you'd say if and then. If this next step contains the URL is not empty, go here. If not, go here. Lindy just says, write to me in plain text. If there's a meeting link, figure that out and just proceed, right? Like I don't need to get into the details, but I still give you the power. And so in this case, what's happening is anytime there is a meeting that has a meeting link, this Lindy AI would join the meeting on my behalf and record the meeting and create a document with the notes for that meeting. Now, that's very simple stuff. Everybody can create meeting recorders. However, the really cool part about this is when this workflow is combined with this workflow, what this now does is I can now chat with all the meeting notes that meeting recorder has saved in the Google Docs. So that meeting recorder saved the notes in Google Docs. And then within Lindy, we said, okay, now have a database or knowledge source. And that knowledge source is the Google Drive, the folder with all those Google Docs. And so what this step does for Lindy is it vectorizes all of the data in that Google folder and all those docs in a way that you could retrieve that data very, very quickly. And it's very helpful to be able to have a chatbot, or like in this case, there's a trigger for I could chat with it here. I could like literally chat with it here, or I could chat with it via a Slack message or a Slack channel that I set up. And I could say, hey, I met with Kieran 2 months ago. We spoke about something I forgot. Can you tell me? And it'll go check all those meeting notes and then respond in a very human-like way of, oh, you guys were talking about setting up AI agents and n8n and Lindy, and be like, oh, that's right, right? So Lindy, this is a very simple AI agent builder. And maybe it's not even AI agents at this point, right? You can add an agent node in here kind of at any step. But right now, we're not even using AI agents. email, like enter an agent kind of thing. This is really just an AI automation flow at this point. There's no major fuzzy logic and tools that the agent's working with. It's just a modernized AI automation platform that has simplified a lot of things that maybe something like a Make hasn't gotten to yet. Different audiences. This is really like a business audience, and Make is more of a technical audience, I'd say. But the ability that they're able to just take this one node, and with this one node, do very complex technical stuff behind the hood, and then just give you access to that in the next node is really cool. And so this is kind of wrapped into the AI agents frenzy that we're seeing right now. But this actually isn't an AI agent. This is an AI automation. An AI automation has been around for a long time. But this is also really cool. And this is really helpful. And just because it isn't an AI agent doesn't mean it's not helpful. You know what I mean? And so the point I'm trying to make is, I think Lindy.ai is blowing up because, you could build AI agents here. Yes, you could build AI agents, but really it's just a great automation AI platform as well. And that is being propelled with this AI agent, craze and frenzy. And so what I think is going to happen is, no code is going to ride the coattails of AI and AI automation and agents of, hey, I want to build an AI agent. Okay, I'm going to get started in Lindy.ai. And I just built that automation that solved what I needed to do, but it actually wasn't an AI agent at all. It was just a no-code platform that I've been having access to. I just didn't know that I could do this or to look for this because I wasn't aware of AI or AI agents that the mainstream has now made us aware of, right?
Yeah, so it's like every business probably has tons of stuff they could automate with a classic linear Zapier automation, but they don't know about it, or it hasn't captured their imaginations enough. And then the promise of AI agents is that it can do all this stuff. And then you get into it and actually you're like, I don't really need an agent. I just needed an automation all along, which I could have done.
Exactly.
And it's, I mean, the n8n interface makes complete sense. And I get why, sometimes you see on LinkedIn, people post an image of a web of
it's
nodes,
just crazy,
way bigger than what you've got there.
Yeah,
and people are like, "Oh my god!" And they're like, "Yeah, message if you want a copy of this."
Yeah, it's like working out at Muscle Beach in California. You're working out outdoors with your shirt off, on purpose. It's okay, man, is that really real? Does that really work?
Well, yeah, okay. So one of my questions for you is, a lot of the content on YouTube that I'm seeing about n8n seems a bit scammy. They always say, I'm making loads of money from doing n8n automations, and I'm like, okay, who's paying you all this money? Since when? And why are there no Zapier experts who are saying, I'm making loads of money from doing Zapier automations? And then a lot of them seem to share the same workflows, or they you can see almost identical workflows being shared, and they're like, join my community, you'll get access to this workflow. And they're like, I'm running my whole life off of this. And I'm just thinking, are they actually running their whole life, or have they just turned this kind of into a little pyramid scheme? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff and there's a lot of noise. Like anything. Like any kind of hype cycle with any kind of craze, there's a lot of people that are just chasing the craze. And then there's a lot of people that are actually doing well in one way or the other. Like n8n, it's been around for a long time. There's been experts for this for 5-6 years that have really made a living off of n8n that no one knows about, kind of thing. They haven't ridden the hype cycle in that way, right? And there's some real use cases with n8n. And some of the stuff I haven't talked about is it's open sourced. So at any time you could self-host this. And when I was talking to Max from n8n, he was employee 5 at n8n. And he told me about a use case where there's a cruise ship that sails around the world, and their entire automations for their guest services is based on n8n and n8n flows that the cruise ship self-hosts on their own servers and never touches any outside data or anything. And it practically runs for free because it's all, self-hosted, and it does everything they need to in a safe, secure way in that way, right? And that's a great use case for it. You don't have internet connection. You don't need to worry about sending data to different servers. Keep it local, run it with your own processing power, and this is great. I've also been aware of like other people sell like automation agencies where they go into companies, they audit companies and say, hey, we're going to build this process for you. And maybe it's like a helpline, like a call center that is going to answer calls on your behalf and then route them accordingly and connect them and things. And like, that's a whole system you can build in n8n. And what these people are doing is they're actually licensing that workflow on a yearly basis, then charging for it. And I've heard some cases of people charging up to like $50,000 a year for them to implement this system that they help manage and monitor for that company. And then they license it on a yearly thing for them to actually use that workflow for them in that controlled way. And then you have the other people that are just get paid by the hour to build these automations and workflows for them, right? And so there's a lot of different ways you could use it. And also the community can build their own nodes as well. And then you can use community nodes very similar to Bubble can build their own plugins as well. n8n can build their own community. And with the growth that the n8n is seeing and their community is seeing, the amount of things that are being built for the ecosystem now is just hit this flywheel of just incredible value. And so they've had a lot of things converge at the right time where n8n is now getting better overnight, 10x more faster because the community is adding so much value to the notes that they're creating, the templates that they're creating, the videos that they're showcasing of all this stuff, right? With that, I think a lot of content creators have seen that n8n videos are getting a lot of views right now. There's a lot of hype. It's leading that cycle. And so by creating videos with n8n, you can get more views, right? And so sometimes that's what they think. And so then they'll create those videos. And so sometimes with those people, though, it's and sometimes myself included, we'll make workflows you make a workflow, but we're not actually going to use that workflow in a production sense. So that workflow might look good from surface area, but like, are you actually using it in production in a real live way? And is it going to hold up in that way? That's another story. You kind of got to figure that out for yourself. But there are definitely some great n8n instructors out there on YouTube and others that I've learned from myself, and they've been very helpful. And then there's also some other stuff where it's just like they're going to kind of get you at the surface level. But then if you actually go in the check in the nodes, the prompts are empty or whatever, like that kind of thing. One other thing that I really like about this is I could completely share this node, this whole workflow with you. I could download it as JSON and you could just upload it into your own workspace and you have this whole thing automatically done for you. And then you could just connect your credentials and you'd be good to go. Like sharing that is really cool in n8n. And like it really enables stuff. So like in my courses, as I teach each lesson, I essentially like the editor file in Bubble, you share the editor file. I include the JSON file that they could just download and bring into their own workspace in that way. So that's really cool. And then there's some other cool stuff in here where if you go into settings, you can create a workflow, like an error workflow. So if any time at any point your workflow has an error, you could send it to another workflow that is just built to handle errors for you. Maybe that workflow includes like a Sentry bot that like manages that error and stores that error or whatever, and then email notification lets you know. And so like it's really built in a modular way where you can like build something once and then just call it again in another way, which is really helpful. And then there's also some other cool things where if you see like right now I'm in here, let's see if I can put together a previous example in a visual way here.
I think error handling is like it's so important. The fact that they have that kind of almost automated error handling, or the ability to just say like any error in this whole workflow, start another workflow, that is something that is really lacking, I think, from a lot of the other tools. And obviously you could build that in most of them, I think. Can you do that in Zapier? I don't know, but
I don't think it's getting to that level. For some reason, my Gmail auth is failing right now, so I'll try another one. I will say that authentication generally is a little suspect at least in n8n. Like over here, I have credentials, and the cool thing is like I have these different projects, and within projects, I have shared credentials for those projects. So what you're seeing right now is essentially all the credentials that I've made, and so that way, whenever I build any kind of tools within this project, automatically these credentials are connected. But like these credentials, I think I don't know, because of how credentials work, expire maybe after a week or something, like they just randomly expire on you and then you have to reconnect it. And so sometimes that's a pain. But
I
otherwise
think
it is.
Gmail, I found Gmail like connecting to stuff is quite annoying. You have to like create your own OAuth thing in the Google Cloud console or something, which is quite technical. And
Yeah.
then even then they say like, oh, it's going to expire like in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that one has been really a pain. And LinkedIn and X both have been a real big pain for me to get that auth proper. Like it'll say it's connected, but so sometimes auth is still a little bit hard, and it's just kind of a little finicky. But what I was trying to show you is, here's another example of. So if I go into my personal assistant, I want to just show you how memory or data is shown. So it's running, and then it hit this module, and then it actually didn't need any tools to it, so it didn't call it. So if I go into this node, I can see the data coming through the previous steps. And then I can open this up, and I could take that data and just drag it, drop it here to like now pass that data onto the next step in a dynamic way. And beyond that, you can just start to really like do your own curly brackets, and like there's its own almost like programming language within the nodes here that you can explore. And so instead of just dragging and dropping here, I could build out that JSON object if I wanted to bring it in that way as well. I could do it that way just from a keyboard perspective, or I can even go with like a from AI mechanism, which is literally AI taking like a prompt and then figuring it out with AI in this way as well. And so there's a lot of different ways, and you can use this from AI to like fill in the different parameters or inputs needed for certain things. It's like, I don't know, like say I need to fill out a role in a prompt and I don't maybe want to do it a static way. I could just use from AI and give it a little bit of directions, and then it'll hit an independent LLM call to fill in that prompt or that variable that I need in that way within the workflow in a very dynamic, modular way, right? And so
yeah, that's very cool.
These were kind of part of the things that I was saying is like, as you get deeper in n8n, you learn more, and like similar to Bubble, you don't feel like you're ever going to hit a ceiling. So if I build something here, I feel like I could just always keep building. And if I was using this in a as a professional developer, where this company was like, hey, we want you to build this, I'd probably still build it in n8n, even if it started simple, because if the client then came back to me and says, I want you to add this, and I want you to add this, I would feel comfortable keep adding to the n8n flow in a modular way that's just not going to hit that ceiling. Whereas maybe Zapier, which is a really good builder for AI agents, like very simple AI agents, they do a lot of things really well at Zapier with their agents. It's a very simple but like powerful thing. You just in plain text say, hey, check my calendar, and you give it access to your calendar, and then email me something, and you give it access to send emails. And in that plain text way, without actually building any workflows, it'll just understand it and do those actions for you, which is great. But what happens if error handling comes in? What happens if all these little things come in that you want to build a workflow in a production ready way around? I don't think Zapier is quite there yet, but I do feel like you could get there with n8n, and I don't feel any limitations there. And so, yeah, that's why I was one of those things. Was like, as I build more and more in it, I could see why people love it. Like I could see it being a winner in the visual automation workflow space in the future. And I think Zapier is doing a really good job. I think they were a little late. I think they launched agents as like something else branded initially, and it was just not terminology that was accepted widestream.
It's like Zapier Central or something.
Central, like Zapier Central, and they didn't actually call it AI agents, and so no one really knew what Central was. And then they finally rebranded it as AI agents, and then everyone was like, "Oh, that's what it was," right? And I think they're trying to figure out their next moves as well. Make has always been a really good platform, a very powerful technical platform, but they've been slow to adapt these AI agents, nodes, LangChains, etc. And I think they're really built for a linear way, whereas these other platforms are not really as built for such. You can almost think of it like Bubble. Bubble was built for 10 years ago in a very specific way. And then the industry changed, right? And now all of a sudden access to code is really important. And I think that's kind of like where Make is. They built something really strong a long time ago, and the industry has changed. And now something like a Lindy and how they do their branchings and everything is kind of a little bit easier and better in that way. And now I think Make is trying to figure out how they're going to adapt and implement these new modernized ways to build. And Make will get there. They're a strong company. They have a great community, no doubt. I think just a lot of these what we're seeing in the no code world is the AI builders and AI have come very quick, faster than we all thought. We didn't get caught off guard, but we're surprised by their growth. And they have taken their shot. And now no code companies are figuring out how they want to strike back. And not all no code companies are saying, I'm going to ignore the roadmap that we have for the next year just to strike back with AI, because this roadmap is still very impactful and it's very valuable. So I'm not just going to ignore everything that our customers have helped us build this roadmap for. We're still going to implement that, but we also are going to implement these AI things to strike back and to counter. And so I think over the next year, we're going to see no code platforms now with this new context of the AI market, figure out how they're going to participate in this new world of AI no code, how they want to add value and contribute, and they're going to make their own counterpunches. What I don't know is if those counterpunches are going to be enough or not, especially with the way that AI builders are moving and how quick they're moving. We'll see. But I think the good thing is there is more awareness than ever before about AI automation. And again, no code is a very, very good vehicle to deliver AI and AI automation, if not the best vehicle. So people are becoming more aware to no code platforms without knowing that they're no-code platforms faster than ever before, which is a really good thing for no-code adoption. It's just going to change a little bit of how we thought about this. And, I recently spoke with the founder of WeWeb on my podcast This Week in No Code. And our whole conversation was like, all right, now with these AI builders, what do no-code platforms do? How do we position ourselves? And how are we going to win? And one of the main thoughts that came out of that was, it's going to come down to UX. It's going to come down to each platform having the ability, the tools needed to create the software needed to be created. But the UX of how that user actually creates the software, actually creates the tools, is going to be really, really important. And their marketing, how they're able to get it out there. And the customer service, how they're able to support it. All those things are going to become the moats, because the moat is no longer the technology. The 10 years of infrastructure they built, not with AI anymore. AI can build this stuff overnight. Now it's the UX of how you're actually able to, build this stuff. And then of course the quality, the output, how can you manage that in the long run? How can you manage that in a production world? And in many ways, no code has already been solving these problems for the last 5 to 10 years. They've solved infrastructure. They've solved authentication. They've solved hosting. They've solved scalability. They've solved security DDoS attacks. They've solved all this infrastructure that AI builders are just learning how to solve and haven't quite solved yet. However, no-code platforms haven't solved their ability to take AI and put together something incredible in 30 seconds. But they've solved all that other stuff. So now no-code platforms, I think, are figuring out, all right, now how do we implement AI to get you that 60 seconds result that is incredible? Whereas the AI builders are like, all right, we got that 60-second result. Now let's build all the infrastructure that no-code platforms have been building the last 5 to 10 years. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Also a bit scary, a bit overwhelming, confusing to know, like, what we're supposed to be doing, where we're going to be placing our career bets. But yeah, like in terms of UI, I feel like the kind of node approach of n8n is always going to be restricted to the kind of more technical people. And from my experiments with Zapier agents, where it's just basically a big text box and you just type instructions as if you're typing notes or an email to a new member of staff, and then you just say, okay, here's where the documents are, here's like the credentials from our accounts, decide it. That felt to me like that could get close to mass adoption if they can get it right. My experiments found it to be not that reliable at the moment, but as you said, like a new model one day, and suddenly everything just works perfectly, and you're like, oh my god, okay, this is completely different from how it was last week, and I didn't have to do anything. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
I was building some workflows for my SaaS trade backlinks over the weekend, and I had this one workflow and it just wasn't working. And so I just switched out the model and it worked. And it was just like one of those things where I have like 4 models that I can queue up at any time. And if that model just doesn't work, I'll just try another model or two, and then maybe that will just solve everything, right? And again, this could also just improve overnight, and you just upgrade it. And it's just like boom, and that's like if you saw the stuff that happened with 3.7, a lot of these AI builders were building with 3.5. And then when they upgraded to 3.7, all of a sudden everything kind of changed. The results changed. It got smarter, but in a bad way, because it was different, providing different results than they expected. And it kind of threw everyone in a loop for a little bit. And we're going to continue to see a lot of that as these models grow and advance. But it's also great that we have people spending the money to get us this kind of innovation at the hands of it makes it available. Like, you can use most of these tools for free. It's
yeah.
insane.
And I recorded a video a few weeks ago. Like I did one about Bubbles AI Builder. I did one about trying to build apps with like Replit and stuff, and stuff wasn't that great. It kept hitting problems, and then so I like said, okay, yeah, these things just aren't ready. And then like as I was saying that, new model was released, and then I try it again, and suddenly everything works, and I'm like, okay, the stuff I was saying like 2 days ago is now like redundant because everything's changed again. It's
Yeah.
so hard to keep up.
Yeah, but listen, yesterday in the United States, it's St. Patty's Day, so my family got together, and my poppy, he's 75 years old. He goes, JJ, how's business? How you doing? And I go, I'm really lucky because I have stumbled into a career that just couldn't be a better time right now. Like, I work in technology and AI. I help people learn these skills and I implement this technology. We, as an industry, everyone is going to need this in the next 5 to 10 years. Like, this is one of those things where we were into no code when it was small and like hobby-ish, and we just kept with it because we love it. But all of a sudden we kind of stumbled into the next big thing that this whole world is going to be implementing. And now we're already professionals because we've been building with it for 4 or 5 years. So things couldn't be better. And yeah, things are moving fast. And yeah, some things are overhyped and overpromised. But I think it's up to us now as stewards of this craft to figure out, all right, what's real, what's not? How can I help you create real value and solve real problems? Maybe it's an AI agent, maybe it's just Zapier, whatever. But I can help guide you and figure that out. And so many more people are now open to that conversation than they were previously. And that's incredible. Like, just this last week, I've had a roofer and a sports facility contact me and say, hey, how do I implement AI into my systems? Right. And I've never had anyone call me as like, hey, how do I implement no code into my system? People have known I'm the no code guy for 5 years. These same people have known that. But now they call me and say, hey, how do I implement AI into these systems? And I think that's a turning point. The local small business now wants to integrate AI. And that is just the start of this next generation of adapting and upgrading and building these systems for businesses all around the world. So it's never been a better time to be in this industry. It's never been a better time to learn these skills. Even if you don't want to be a professional developer, learn these skills because they're going to be paramount when it comes to getting a raise at your company, getting a promotion at your company, not getting fired, making yourself irreplaceable. All of these things will help you level up in a world where these automations, these technology, these agents are going to be important. You need to know how to harness it. Very similar to knowing how to work with Excel, knowing how to work with emails, how to work with Microsoft Teams. All that stuff is about to be outdated, and it's now about to be, how do I build systems? How do I build ways to automate that busy work? Oh, I need to build a form to capture this and automatically check these leads and then notify them. And I'm not going to spend 5 hours a week doing it. I can just build a system in 5 hours that will just do that. And now I can tell my boss, hey, what other work do you got for me? How can I be helpful? Right? Like, that kind of skill will put money back in the pockets of your employer and will be very favorable for you in the long term. And whether it's with n8n, it's with Zapier, it's with Lindy, it's with any of the other AI agent platforms, automation platforms. It's really important that you get in there and you be curious. Just like the podcast hasn't forced me to be curious, find 30 minutes a week, put in your calendar, and just spend that time being curious. Go to YouTube, go to ChatGPT, Anthropic, Perplexity, and just ask around, right? You'll learn a lot, and then you'll get access to tools that you can use in your everyday life that aren't fluff, that are actually really, really helpful. And that will help you take that next step in a way that maybe is better paced for you. So whether you're going all in and learning AI agents in my next course, or just spending 30 minutes a week, a month, just fooling around, I encourage you to be curious.
Wow, those are super wise words to end on, and yeah, you've made me feel better and inspired as well to continue the learning journey. Thank you so much for sharing all this knowledge on AI agents with us. Like, yeah, it's easy to see how this is already big and going to be huge in the future. Like the unlimited potential, especially as these models keep improving.
Yeah.
Where can people go to find out more about your AI agents course?
Yeah, go to nocodealliance.org. I have 5 different courses there for Bubble, teaching you Bubble at any step. And then I have an AI agents course. It's intro to AI agents. So it's meant for those that have never built with an AI agent before. And we'll teach you everything you need to know to build very simple agents to complex agents in n8n. And the really cool thing about that course that I'm really proud of is 2 things. I've worked with the platform, so n8n, Lindy, and some others, to get free credits. So if you sign up to the course, you get over $200 in free credits to use these platforms for free while you're building, learning, etc. And then the next thing I'm really proud of is each of the platforms that I teach in the course, which is 5 different platforms, I have an interview with either the CEO or a high team member on that for that tool, going in like behind the scenes of like, what is this tool? Why did we build it? How does it help you? All that kind of stuff. And so each of those interviews are within the modules where I teach the tool. So before I teach you the tool, I bring in like the CEO of the tool or employee number 5 of the tool and say, what is this tool? Tell me the backstory. Why is this powerful? You get that inside look. And then I go in there step by step and teach you how to use it in a way. So I think that's like really cool access that maybe not many other people can get. And I've been lucky enough to get that access and to bring those CEOs into the course, into the podcast, and to tell us, why these tools are important.
Yeah, that's an amazing way to frame the learning you're about to do, is to speak to the person that built the tool. And I can't think of any other courses where you get that. So yeah, that's phenomenal. Okay, so nocodealliance.org. Go there, check out JJ's courses. And I'm sure, you're saying it's for people just learning about AI agents, but 99.99% of the world have never built an AI agent. That's for sure. So
this will be for you. I even start with showing you how to build a database, what a database is, fields, tables, etc. And then we teach about RAG and vector, and then we start with Zapier, and then we kind of work our way up and take it baby steps.
Awesome. Thank you so much, JJ.
It's a pleasure, as always.